If you're working with Git repositories, you might have noticed that there are several ways to work together. For instance, you can work everyone together in the same repository, or you can work over multiple repositories. In this demo, I'm going to quickly show you how you can use the different workflows within GitLab, and I'm going to briefly mention what the advantages and disadvantages of each are. Let's say that I'm working on the database API here, and I want to make some changes while not interrupting the work of my colleagues. I don't want any conflicts with their work. There's two ways that I can do this. I can either choose to work together in the same repository, branch off, or I can create a fork and work from a fork repository. Let's start by making changes in the local repository. In this case, I'm going to use GitLab to make the changes, but of course you could also do this locally. I'm going to edit the readme, add a line here, set my commit message, and rather than committing to the master branch, I'm just going to change the branch and make my change in a separate branch. So I'm branching off from the latest point in master. In this case, let's call it random branch. I commit my changes, and by changing the branch name like this, GitLab automatically creates a new branch in which my new change exists. If I switch back to master, you will see that the change is not there. So by making a change in a separate branch, I'm not disrupting any work on master, and now I can simply create a merge request. I can even see here that I pushed a new branch here, and GitLab will query me to create a new merge request. And if I create it, it automatically goes to the master branch of the same repository. Now I can set a title and a description, which is always a good idea to do. But what is even more convenient is that I can easily link my colleagues by mentioning them. I can mention entire groups. I can mention other merge requests or even issues. In this case, I have no issues, so there's nothing to link to. Please merge this if the code is good. And then maybe I should assign it to someone so that they check my code and review it. If I submit my merge request, my colleagues will have the option to line by line comment on it. If I'm happy with the change, I can simply accept the merge request and maybe even remove the source branch in the project. So what it is, I branched off in the same repository from the master branch, and I created a merge request and it's merged back in. This very basic workflow is called GitLab Flow. This is the workflow we typically subscribe to at GitLab, and a very lightweight way of working, but it has several advantages. For one, the branch that I created is available to everyone. So everyone that is working in this repository can simply pull my branch. So if they, for some reason they want to work on my branch or want to check it out, they can simply go here. For instance, here's another branch someone else created. Another advantage is that everything is integrated. So if I have any hooks set up, any certain kind of Git hooks or web hooks in my project, they will work as normal because I set them up for this specific project and I do not need to make any other changes. So everything that happens or any restriction that applies to this project stays as it is. But besides that, it's really lightweight. Everything is in one place and you already manage the permissions for this place, so it's easier to share work even if it's not merged into master. An alternative workflow is by forking. Let's go to one that I didn't fork yet. This project, I can choose, for instance, to fork the repository. And if I choose fork, and let me show it clearly to you, it's in the project view and then in the top right. I can choose to fork the project, meaning to clone the entire project to a different namespace, for instance, my own. And this is a workflow that is really popular, made popular, for instance, by GitHub. And in this case, you create an entire copy of the entire repository and you start to work in there. Let's make a commit here. I can simply edit the readme here again, and I add a line. In this case, I can simply commit to master if I want. I could also commit to a different branch. That doesn't really matter. As before, I made a change. But now if I want to share it, I have to merge it back into the main repository or give people individual permissions. If I want to make a merge request, I can simply go to merge request, new merge request, select the branch from my current. So I'm in the path is root website and the branch master where we did the latest commit and a line. And now I can, rather than merging back in the same repository, merge it into master of another repository or of another namespace, the same repository. Again, I have the same options as before, and I have the merge request created. Now again, my colleagues can comment line by line, and I'm still able to mention anyone here and reference issues and reference merge requests, etc., just as before. The only difference is that if someone wants to check out my code, or for instance make a commit onto my code, I have to give them access to my project under my namespace. So by using this flow, by using the forking flow, it's a little bit harder to share your code. But if you're working with hundreds of people on a single repository, maybe you prefer this method because it avoids having many branches in a single repository. If you do choose to use the GitLab workflow, where you branch off in a single repository, we recommend that you always remove the source branch upon merging, just like I did last time. So if we check out the merge request that I made before, which was here in database, merge request, or maybe even this one. This one can be merged. This is the one we just merged. You see that upon merging, I opted to remove the source branch, and this prevents many branches piling up in your repository. So when you start working together with people in GitLab, and especially with many people, think about making a merge request. That is really important for code review. But also think about the way you're going to do this, whether you're going to have people fork the repository or whether you give people permissions in a single repository. In another demo, I'm showing you how to manage permissions with GitLab. And managing permissions is typically a little bit easier if you subscribe to GitLab Flow over the forking workflow. But look what's best for you and use that. Good luck.